Hey, my good friend Kelli Garrett is going to come meet me for coffee in just a minute here, and she is an absolute rock star. I met Kelli, I don't know, probably about a year and a half ago in person. We've been friends on social media for many years before that, and we have a ton of mutual friends. She's here, right here in Charleston, South Carolina. She's done everything you can think of in the real estate investing space. She's a private money lender. She's an active operator. She runs a real estate investors association here locally. She has a coaching platform. And what really fascinates me about Kelli is that she invests in businesses and flips businesses the same way that we flip properties or flip apartment buildings. And so I have a lot of awesome, in-depth questions I'm going to ask her about how she does that, some of the similarities and differences between flipping businesses and flipping real estate, and what that all looks like from a team development standpoint, and the fundamentals of business and the acquisition and the disposition and everything else that comes in between from flipping real estate and flipping businesses. Kelli Garrett, what's going on?
Well, just plugging along like we always do, I guess. A little real estate, little business.
Yeah. No, I'm excited to sit down and I mean, obviously we've hung out in group settings, but we haven't really connected one-on-one much.
No, we haven't.
And there's a lot of things that you have going on that are very interesting and appealing, and obviously you got a ton of insights from being in business, both in real estate and traditional business, and having a lot of experience in that stuff. So I'm excited to kind of just talk shop and see where the conversation leads us.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's good to get to know each other a little bit better than just business stuff. Watching you from afar, I wanted to join your mastermind for that one reason. I had just kind of seen you from afar, and I thought, you can kind of get to know people a little bit better when you're seeing them, off shop, if you want to call it that, talking shop, working, and then what we do after hours or whatever. You kind of get to know a person a little bit more, and that's just kind of my personality. Before, I was interested in some of your deals and coming in as a passive investor, because that's where I am these days, as more of a passive type of multifamily person. But it's important that I got to know you more before I do that. I mean, it's before you hand over hundreds of thousands of dollars to somebody, I want to know you, I want to know your team, and that's just who I am, So, but your mastermind is everything that I thought it was going to be. You guys and your team is everything I thought it was going to be.
Awesome.
But put a stamp of approval on that.
I appreciate that. It means a lot. I got a great team. These guys are just super hard workers, and they would run through brick walls for us, for our joint venture partners, for all of our investors, and really got fortunate on that side of things. One of the biggest conversations that people bring to me is how'd you start scaling? How'd you start growing? How did you go from no employees to many employees? Oh, I need a Matt Carlin, your COO. I need a Fatty Boumitri on my team. I need all these people. And I was it didn't start with all those people, right? It started with me hiring an assistant and messing it up. The story that people don't know is I started a management company, and it was so bad at hiring people, I had to fire everybody after 6 months.
Right.
And then I did it again, and I fired everybody again after 3 or 4 months. And then finally, the third time, I started understanding that I'm a bad hirer, I'm a bad trainer, I'm a bad, I wasn't measuring their performance in any way, and I needed to bring in people who were experts, and then I leaned on them and learned from them.
Isn't it funny? It's I did the exact same thing. I thought I was good at it, but I think I was hiring down instead of hiring up.
Right.
And there's so many people that want to be pulled up, and I was spending so much time and energy and focus on bringing them up, and they really just don't want to be.
That you wanted to pull up.
Exactly. They didn't want to. And so I was noticing that, and I don't know if that just comes with time and experience and maturity, I don't know. Yeah. But then you start realizing that the minute you hire up, smarter than you, better than you, can hire better than you, can do a lot of things better than you, is when the magic happens.
It's game changer.
It is.
And it's I think a lot of people think, hey, if I hire somebody better than me, they're going to take all my trade secrets and then go and do it on their own.
Yep.
But there's a lot of people who are not entrepreneurs, they're intrapreneurs, right? They think like an owner, but they don't want to take on the responsibility. They don't want to take on the liability. They don't want to go and have all the headaches that we as entrepreneurs and business owners take on. But they love working in a small business and helping that small business grow. And I think that's a key insight and understanding. And a lot of people are like, well, if I train them on how to do this, they might leave me. Well, I can promise you, if you don't train them, they will leave you.
That's right.
That's
exactly right.
So you better just train them so you have good employees while they are there. And if you get a good culture, you give them growth opportunities and opportunity to continuously level up with you as you level
That's
up,
right.
then I think they're going to stay with you forever.
Yeah.
You know?
I totally agree with that. I think that that was a big game changer with me. And it only happened probably, I've been doing this, working for myself almost 20 years now.
Yeah.
And it only happened about less than 5 years ago did it click. Like, why am I spending so much of my time and energy trying to pull somebody? When I use the word pull, I literally am pulling them, and they don't want to be pulled.
Yep.
So that was just a big game changer for me. And, and they're out there. There's plenty out there.
Yep.
And then I noticed one time, I think you said that a lot of you guys that work for you maybe went to high school with you or something. Mm-hmm. And that was the kind of route I went. I went for a college teammate, college roommate. She had went away and went in corporate America, came back 28 years later.
So what do you think about, and she's a rock star for you.
Rock star, God.
So what do you think about people who are like, I don't want to work with my friends or my family because it could hurt that relationship?
Yeah, and I've done both. Again, I think you have to just analyze who that entrepreneur or entrepreneur. I've worked with family. It doesn't always work.
Yep.
But again, do they want to grow with you? Do they really want to? Our families, they come down and see what we might have accomplished,
Yep.
maybe materially. That's it.
Yep.
But they don't see your Monday, Tuesday. They don't see your day to day.
Right.
So they get down here and stay 3 or 4 or 5 years, and they think, "Hey, I don't really want to work that hard."
Yep.
And I get it. And if you don't, that's fine. But that's what it takes.
Yeah. 100% it does. And I think when, like, I hired a lot of my friends early on, and many times it didn't work out, right? Once I understood how to set proper expectations, how to measure performance, and a lot of the people who are on my team now that are the A players that they went to high school with me, but they weren't like good, close friends with me at that time. We knew each other, we were friendly, but we weren't necessarily friends and hanging out every single weekend. But I knew these people, and so there was a comfortability with them. And I knew what their work ethic was like, because I had worked with them in some different capacities, more on a joint venture basis, on a deal-by-deal type basis. And then when I saw how they interacted, they liked how I worked, I liked how they worked, that's when we started really collaborating at a higher level, more across everything that we do. And I think that's a good stepping stone, right? Like you crawl before you walk before you run, kind of a thing. And you can kind of, what's nice about businesses and real estate is you can kind of joint venture or do like a testing of 90 days working together and see where it goes from there.
No, the joint venture thing is a great idea, because you can really see a lot about the person. Mm-hmm. And like you can see if, okay, can we do more together than we can separately?
Yep.
And then realizing, hey, that person brings something to the table that I don't have. A lot of times we like the same type of person. Yep. And that's not always the best move. It's not usually the best move, because I got this covered, and you get that covered, and you just bring so much more to the table.
Yeah, you want. I think that's a great point, because a lot of us look for somebody who has similar strengths. You don't want that. You want somebody who complements your strengths, who doesn't dance on your strengths, but they complement your weaknesses, kind of a thing, right? Like they lift you up where you're weak, and that's why you see all these amazing partnerships, like Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak. Steve Jobs was much more of a visionary. Steve Wozniak understood the technical aspect of how to design the computers. You see it with John D. Rockefeller and Henry Flagler. Henry Flagler developed the entire eastern seaboard of Florida, and he was the number 2 guy for John D. Rockefeller, but they complemented each other very, very well. And you even see it, today with my business and my COO and your business and your COO. They don't have the exact skill sets. Like if my COO wanted to sit down and grab coffee and create content and be, head of coaching programs, he could do it, but it's not his strength.
That's right.
It would take a lot of energy for him to kind of get out of his shell and do that. He loves spreadsheets. He loves analytics. He loves data. He loves standard operating procedures. And that stuff you and I can do, but it takes us a lot of energy, it takes us out of our shell a little bit, and it's not our driving zone. So like, how do you stay in your driving zone and then find somebody to take those other things off your plate?
Yep. I just think it's so important. If we spend more time, if anybody's bringing in that leadership team, spend more time finding that right person, it might take a little bit more time, a little bit more energy. And like you say, do a trial basis. It just, you know what, it's just not working out.
Yep.
Let's just move on.
Yep.
But in the future, it just makes your life so much easier.
What about people that you don't know? Do you usually do the hiring? Do you hire somebody to find people now, or what does that look
Now,
like?
because I know the strength of my CO, that's what she did for 28 years.
Oh, really?
She hired so many people in corporate America. She is fantastic at it. Yeah, we get stung every once in a while, but overall, she does all the hiring because she's better at it than I am. I thought I was good at it, but I'm not.
I'm not good at it at all.
In comparison. So she does all that when we're bringing in, you know, in my lending business, you got to have somebody that on the processing side, somebody that is extremely detailed and organized. Sometimes being extremely detailed doesn't mean they're organized.
Right.
So when you have to have both of that characteristic, and she might role play, she might give them a job description and spend 15 or so minutes doing that specific job during the interview.
That's a good idea. Like, instead of interviewing them, actually have them audition, have them actually do the task.
I'll give you a real crazy example. Obviously, we flip businesses, and one of our last business was a manufacturing company called Carolina Cotton Candy in Somerville, South Carolina, and we did millions of bags of cotton candy and candied apples, wholesaled those to grocery stores. Like, Food Line would come and pick up 12 tractor-trailer loads at a time. So it's not like your birthday parties or baby reveals, which we have like 5% of that.
Yeah.
It was wholesale, just tractor-trailer loads of coming out of our dock. And so it was very interesting. But when she was over that, she was over Carolina Cotton Candy and definitely hired the workers on a daily basis, whether they're $12 to $15 an hour workers. And so she literally have a stick, because when you spin cotton candy, you're rolling it around in a bowl. I don't know if you've ever seen it before. And you roll it and you place it in the bag. So she literally would have a mock set up and see their hand-eye coordination. You have to be able to stand on your feet for 8 hours. You have to be able to, you can tell somebody that's got a little rhythm or a little bit of some hand-eye.
Yeah.
And so it was like a mock setup over here.
Awesome.
And it was awesome.
That's crazy.
I would never thought about that. You're thinking about it's a special person to be able to do that.
It's awesome. So you kind of hit on this, and we haven't even dove into it. The conversation kind of takes its own path, but I do want to spend some time on you flipping businesses. I know that you flip real estate.
Yep.
You have extensive background in real estate. I definitely want to hit on, you've taken those same skill sets and flipped businesses like Carolina Cotton Candy. And I know you've worked on several others, but tell me about the similarities and the differences between flipping real estate versus flipping businesses.
It's extremely similar. Product in apartments, multifamily or single family, that's your product. Over here on businesses, this might be, think about it, candied apples, cotton candy. I would never dreamed I'd been in the candy business, never. But it really doesn't matter as long as the P&L works. Right after college, I had some experience at UPS. I worked for UPS for 12 years. So that logistic side of me, think about it. I get out of college at 21. My brain's still developing. That's all I knew was logistics. Yep. And so, when I saw, you can look at a business. It was in a small house. I couldn't see it in the house. We tore the house down, built a 10,000 square foot building, put conveyors and blah blah blah, docks and that kind of thing. So, just using your background with that. So, the product did not matter to me. And a lot of people ask me what kind of business you like to flip. It doesn't matter. We've had from conventional mortgage business to an appraisal business to a manufacturing company to a delivery service to a landscaping. It didn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's all about the P&L and where we can take it. Okay, and it's very similar how it's valued based on. When you're flipping houses, you're looking at the comparable approach. So what does the house down the block sell for? It's 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. Mine's the same size, maybe a little bit bigger, square footage. I have an extra bathroom. So it's more of a comparable approach to evaluating a house flip. But when you're valuing apartment buildings like what we do,
it's all about the P&L. It's all about what's the income minus the expenses, how much can we increase the net operating income of that, and then what's the multiple that it sells for in that marketplace. So what you guys do on the business side is it's the exact same thing, right?
It's the exact same thing. It's strictly about the P&L. Like on your apartments, you're looking for the NOI, and in that we're looking at the exact same thing down here. And then what could it sell for? If I increase that revenue by fivefold, then I've increased my ability, or the amount that I can sell it for, fivefold.
Right.
So, do you know what your revenue? I think in that business we moved it like fourfold in 4 years, and so that's your name of your game. Just like when you're rehabbing your apartments, you're trying to get in, get out, get the rehab done, get the rents up, refinance.
Yep.
The exact same thing, except we're getting out.
You're exiting with a sale.
I'm exiting with a sale, but there's times when you can even exit with a sale, and especially if you like the business, understand the business, and believe in the person that's taking over, then owner finance it.
Yeah.
And then your multiple is 3 more fold.
Right.
And so that's been the interesting part, because I have the lending world, compound interest is just as my side of my brain.
Yep.
And so I'm constantly looking for that. Yep. Now, if I'm wanting to exit, because I don't know if he or she is really going to, just don't believe in him, or if they're going to take it to where it needs to be taken. The person who bought the manufacturing company came from the candy world, has had experience, knows what they're doing. It's not a big learning curve for him, and so I wanted to owner finance that.
Yeah.
I love it because I want that compound interest.
Right.
I actually also, when I exit, I'll ask for, if I'm going to owner financing, that means that like one of me or my team, usually one of my teammates, will go up there every other week, just kind of touch base, feel it, see it.
Yep.
To make sure it's still headed in the right
asset
direction.
Manage it, all right?
Totally, asset manage it. And then I ask for a bonus on revenue. If I'm going to be in here and you want some help from me, that's fine. I want a 2% bonus on top line.
Yep.
I don't want a bonus on bottom line, because they can expense stuff out.
Yeah.
I want on top line. So it makes me, just before I even walked in here, one of Failed Entertainment, who does all the Disney on Ice, Monster Truck Jam, they're getting back in the groove since COVID. And Todd, the guy who owns the place, calls me and says, because he still had my number, because we just sold it in September. And so I'm on the phone with him and the new owner, like, hey, what do you need? They need popcorn in 2 weeks from now. Can you get it to me? And we were just because we also do some popcorn. So I'm still involved. Took me a 5-minute phone call, but I'm after his top line.
Yeah.
Because if his top line grows, my bonus grows.
And I think that makes sense, because a lot of times, like you're a private money lender also, right?
Yeah.
If you lend private money, you expect a certain return on your investment.
Yeah.
And if I lend private money, I expect a certain return on the investment. But if you need my experience, if you need my contacts, if you need my resources, if you need my insights, you need my team to coach and mentor you through the process, that is not the same as just paying me a return on investment. Like it just doesn't come with it, right? Like there needs to be an additional
equity, the way you do equity.
Either equity or payments or like a royalty,
Exactly.
which is like what you set up. And I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think a lot of people don't realize that moving in. Like if you want my intellectual capital as well, that needs a return on investment also.
Exactly. It's so true. And if you don't speak of that at the beginning, they will call you. And they will want that from you.
Yep.
And
it's a great point. Expectation setting, right?
Yeah, at the very beginning. And so I think that's important. It's not that you're not wanting to be a giver. That's not it. It's that, I've spent a lot of time and money getting to where I'm at. Self-educating. So I'm willing to help you in any way. But I just think that's a good business person. If you just want to, pick my brain every day or twice a week, it's got to be, like you said, some intellectual payment for that.
For sure, you got to. So from a standpoint of, how do you find businesses to flip? Like if I wanted to go out and flip a business, and I believe heavily in what you're doing. Like I love real estate, that's always been my baby. But if I buy a building for $10 million, I can stabilize it, improve it, and maybe I can sell it for $15 million. Businesses, you can increase the NOI a lot more, a lot quicker, and you can sell it for many more multiples. Like you could buy a $10 million business and sell it for $40 million if you know what to do and how to improve. So let's kind of go through the process. First, about how to find like distressed businesses, right? Then let's talk about or businesses that are value-add businesses, not necessarily distressed, but any sort of opportunistic business. Then let's talk about the fundamentals are the same, right? And regardless of the business, you had already hit on that. You know, sales and marketing and operations and human resources and accounting and finance and all that, logistics and all that different kind of stuff. Let's hit on a couple of those items, and then let's talk about how you exit the businesses. So first off, how do you look for businesses right now? If you're looking for opportunities.
If I'm looking for opportunities, number one, and I talk about this whether you're trying to find a single family, multifamily, or whatever, or joint venture, is that you letting people know what you're doing. I'm looking for this. I found the manufacturing company, just because it's the last one. I found the manufacturing company from a realtor, a actual commercial realtor that had sold me 2 apartment complexes in North Charleston. And by continuing our relationship, he came to me and said, Kelly, I have this little business. It's a pocket listing in Somerville. He knew who I was. He knew I had where I started at UPS, that I played basketball. He knew that I had just like a little grit to me. And so this just needed a little grit. I think between the logistics and the grit, he kept coming after me. And it wasn't good timing initially. And so I think, but telling him, you know, hey, we have coffee, just like this. You're learning a little bit about me and I'm learning a lot about you, is that I think that's smart with people that can help one another. I helped him, he helped me. So there's business brokers out there.
Just like there's real estate brokers, there's business brokers.
Exactly. So between those two is where I find it. And then lastly is some I've started. And the reason I started is that, let's go back to the mortgage company in 2000. I started a traditional mortgage company, but on my mortgage company, I started looking at my P&L thinking, what is the biggest expense I'm paying? Like, dang, I am spending so much money on appraisals, okay? Now granted, you could think, well, I can have a buyer pay that, yes. But this was 2000, a little bit different. Mortgage company cannot own an appraisal company these days. It sounds crazy, but back 2000, you could. So I was thinking, is that crazy to think now?
Yeah.
It's so crazy to think. But, and I owned the building.
No wonder real estate collapsed.
Exactly. So in Unit A was Millennium Financial, and we owned the building on Clements Ferry. Unit B was Beresford Appraisals. And so, long story, I was fun, you know, if I'm doing 40, 50 loans a month, this is a good business already started.
Yeah.
So, and the reason I got that idea was that I read Walton's book that, you know, owns Walmart, right?
Yeah.
And so, it's an old school book. And he said it, that, it made me think about it, is that back in the 80s when the merchant service, when the credit cards started, okay? He was realizing he's paying 2% to these banks for people to come in and swipe. Right? And that Walmart has to pay that.
Yep.
Right? And so he started looking at his P&L.
Especially on low margin products like what they offer. I mean, that's a big chunk of change.
So he took his P&L, looked at it, how much money was going out to that. So he's like, I'm just going to open up a bank. And that way I can feed my own 2% back into a business that I had. Same thing with so I started, you know, you're silly if you read a book and don't do anything about it, right? Take action. So I said, hey, why can't I just do the same? And so I saw appraisals was where I could feed my own plate.
Love that.
And so that's really, okay, let's go back. So your question was, how do I find them? Maybe one feeds off another. Synergy within each company. You know, maybe if you're apartment guy or gal and you're like spending so much on property management or cleaning or whatever, if you can feed your own plate, that's the big deal.
At what point do you think that it becomes too cumbersome to start a new business just to be more vertically integrated? I understand that, like, I know early on for me, I wanted to be very vertically integrated. I want a brokerage, I want a construction company, I wanted a property management company, I want all this. And I realized that it was just too much, maybe for where I was. Maybe I could do it all now. But really, I sat back over the past couple of years and realized the greatest return on my time and my team's time is sourcing deals and sourcing money. And staffing out construction or project management, or partnering up with a property management company, and not having my own brokerage. Instead, let somebody else go and source those deals, bring them to me, let me just pay them a fee and move on with the investment side. At what point do you think that it becomes too cumbersome, or
No, that's a great question,
You know?
and it's so true. Had it not been in the same building, I'm literally like, if I'm in there, or the person that's, back then I was running it all, and so if I'm in there managing the mortgage company, I just go in Unit B and check on the appraisal company. You know what's going on. You had a lead in both ones, but
easy to manage, wasn't too much work? Did you have a general manager overseeing operations on both of them? And I think that's probably where I always had a bottleneck, because I had my one COO, and I just had him, hey, here's another business for you.
Yeah.
Here's another business for you. And that was not a good idea.
No, I get it, but you have to figure all this out at the end, or in the middle, or when you mature a little bit. But then you go back and look at it, it's like, okay, the appraisal company lasted, it's still around actually, but I sold it to the guys inside.
Yep.
So I was able to say, okay, I started it with my own feed. So it was easier to start because you got the phone ringing, because I'm making it ring.
Yep.
Right? Then you grow it from within.
Yep.
They grow it, and then I sell it off to them, and they live happy ever after. David Bates is running it right now, and it's been around since 2000.
Love it.
So, but again, maybe, it could get where it's too much on you, but at least you start it, feed it, let your main man or girl run it.
I think you make a great point. Is that I think a lot of people want to go start a business, and they need to go and figure out a way to go and drive revenue. What's really key here is you already have the revenue in place, where you just hand it over, and it's generating revenue from day one. So now you can have the money coming in to hire the right people, to be able to pay rent, not worry about keeping the lights on or anything. It's automatically like creating revenue and making money from day one. That makes a lot of sense to me. Like right now I have over 4,000 units, and so we're selling off some of them. We're continuing to grow, but we're going to go on a buying spree at the latter part of this year after we sell off some of our stuff. But I'm thinking, like, I have 4,000 recurring customers every single month. And right now I'm collecting rent and maybe some laundry income, and maybe there's some parking income. But I'm thinking, like, what other services can we provide instead of growing the portfolio, which we also want to do, but how do we grow our amount of revenue per customer that's already buying from us every single month,
That's right.
So I'm thinking, like, could we do some sort of valet trash service where we come around and grab your trash 3 times a week? I have my maintenance guy do it. He's already on salary, so it doesn't cost me anything additional, but I can charge an extra $15 a month. Yeah. And I remember when I lived in an apartment, I hated taking the trash out, going down the stairs, walking across the parking lot when it's either freezing cold or raining out, lifting up the dirty dumpster, throwing it, animals jumping off. Like, I hated that part, so I paid $15 a month.
I think it's a great idea.
I
think it's a great idea.
And you get $15 a month. And let me do some math on this. You have $15 a month times 4,000 recurring customers. That's $60,000
a month
additional revenue. That's straight to the bottom line.
No doubt.
Every single month.
No doubt.
Times 12 months. That's $720,000 a year at a 6% cap rate. That increases the value of the portfolio by $12 million for something nominal that you do like that. And so it makes a lot of sense that if you have the recurring customer base, which you already had in one business, you can create a new business because you can feed it. And I just want to make sure that we hit on that, because I think that's a really integral part of that.
Yeah. So that's kind of how some got started and then were bought. Like I said, business brokers are everywhere. Right now you have some that are struggling. I always look for the ones that they were just tired. This is exactly like you, just exactly like a tired landlord.
Yep.
The same thing, except it's tired, they're a little older, and then they seller finance a lump sum of them. Yeah. You can, in the business.
So that was going to be my next question. Talk about the financing and how you bank these things. Do you get financing from the actual bank? Do you get them to seller finance? Do you bring in private money? What does that look like?
90% of them seller finance. Yep. Because
that's what I found too.
Yep. They want that. And you can definitely, where you can, the beginning years, your early years, you can do it's all about negotiation with rate, and stretch it out 30 years if they'll let you, with a balloon at 10 or 15 years. And then you just try to pay it off in the 10 or 15 years. But you might have sold it in between there and then you're able to.
It's assumable financing kind of a thing?
Correct,
Yeah.
all the time. Let them assume that, like this guy assumed hers, the previous owner of the candy business, he assumed her note because she had it at 4.25, which was cheap money, right, for that. And so he wanted to assume it. It was assumable. I made sure it was assumable day one, and then I took the rest of it.
Love it.
And now I'm compounding at 8%. And if he's ready to find the SBA, because right now SBA lending is huge, and they're paying like the first 8 or 9 months. If you do an SBA loan by the end of the year or something like that, SBA itself will make the first 8 months payments. Wow. And so he's pushing for that. I really don't want it because I want the compound. So.
And when you sell, how is that taxed? If you own the business for more than a year, is it long-term capital gains?
It's long-term,
Yeah. So.
And you can't like 1031 that into apartment deal with you or anything like that. It's got to be like kind, business to business.
But if you found another business that you wanted to buy, you got cashed out, you could take that, you could 1031 it into another business.
From what I understand, you can do that.
Yeah, operations type business. Yeah.
I'm still getting payments on businesses I sold 5, 6, 10 years ago. And that's just kind of what I like. I call them drips. I've just learned that's just what I'm good at is establishing the drips, and then I take that business income and I dump it in multifamily with other apartment syndicators that I trust, and that's where I'm going. With other joint ventures, or maybe I'll do some private lending with joint ventures, and I'm the lender. If there's we split the deal 25%, I'm the lender, and one might be the builder, one might be the whatever, the person who found it or whatever. So it's just kind of what I'm doing. I'm taking that business income and totally putting it back in my business, let it keep working for us. You go to any major metropolitan city and the biggest buildings are either owned or rented by banks, so or insurance companies, which are banks. They are.
And you start thinking, hey, there's something to this, right? Like they must know something because there's a lot of money in that business.
It's a long-term play. It's a slow play. It doesn't, it's not sexy, by any means, but it's a slow play with, call it mailbox money, call it whatever you want to call it.
But it's sexy to me.
Yeah, me too. A lot of people want to get this, in and out. I really, when you're cutting the apple tree down, my dad told me a long time ago, if you sell them, you cut an apple tree down, and I don't want to cut them down. I want to sell the business, but I also want to keep the financing in place when I can. You've said it multiple times. It compounds the return on your investment. Like I've done that with single-family houses where you get a down. Do you always get a down payment usually for the business? Yeah, because you want them to have some skin in the game, right? So I would create the value in a house flip or in a rental property, and then I'd turn around, sell or finance it. You get a premium on the purchase price or on the sales price, and then you make a spread on, either if they're paying you and then you pay your bank, or they assume that loan and then you're still making a percentage return and increases it. Do you typically amortize it with simple interest or like 30-year am where it's front end loaded with interest and then? No, it's just typically simple interest.
Simple interest, so it's the same amount of principal and same amount of interest being paid down every single month.
Yep. And most savvy, because you're dealing with somebody that's in business, most of them will ask you for that. You talked about selling it, and then I always make a good comment when people ask me about that, is that I go into it day one thinking I'm going to sell it. I go, or knowing I'm going to sell it. I'm up front with my management team day one. Look, I'm not going to be here 25 years later. We're going to go into it. So when you're selling a business, just like you're doing with apartments, they're going to ask you for last 3 years tax returns. You got to keep them clean. Your expenses need to be as minimal as possible, but it needs to be real clean.
And it needs to be automated, right? You got to have it. They can't need Kelly there running the business every single day.
No, that's the first thing. They want to see. 90% of the people looking at the businesses will say, well, what happens when you leave? Are these relationships leaving with you? The face of your company needs to be that person that's going to stay, and that's there. And of course, your COO is going with you on the next project, right? And so the COO doesn't need to be the face. It needs to be the face needs to be your management team within.
Yep.
You know, and there could be some turnover.
That's a great
but
point.
It just needs to be. I read a great book, and I'll just plug it, but it's Built to Sell. I think it's John Warlow, and just it'll literally tell you from the jump. And he has a big podcast, and he literally interviews people like myself that flip businesses, and like when to tell your management team, or how to tell your people, you know, day one walking into the business. And then so every business we walk into, I think, this will be sold soon, thinking, okay, well I'm not going to be here, so what's in my head, get it out of my head immediately. Get it out of, now you got to be in there at the jump with maybe setting up the processes and procedures to make sure, again, is it automated? Are there videos there for training? All that, so that when you present it, you're presenting just like you're doing apartments. You're presenting a beautiful little
turnkey.
It is here. You're going to own it and manage it. And the bigger business you are, the easier it is.
Yeah.
You know, the smaller companies just like with apartments. A 20 unit doesn't have enough expenses to go pay for a property manager. You know, so you might as well just add a few zeros and when we're flipping these businesses.
So when you sell it on the back end, are you selling it by listing it through a business broker normally, or do you have enough of a network?
Everyone's a little different. So this last one, I decided to use a national broker, and this is why, because I thought we do 2 products. We just did a lot of 2 products: cotton candy, candy apples, cotton candy, candy apples, cotton candy, candy apples. Whereas I thought that a big candy company might come and absorb 2 products. Yeah. It didn't happen, but that national company was able to. This guy was in Minnesota and has the chocolate company in Minnesota and worked, you know, in tandem with him. Yeah. So I decided not to keep a local business broker, and it worked. He's moved his family here, getting out of Minnesota, so he's running his Minnesota chocolate company remote. Yep. And living here in Mount Pleasant and running it more day to day, just for weather purposes. Yeah. You know, because it's just the beast of living in Minnesota.
I'm going through this right now, and this is a question that hits home with me, because like I have a team. I don't sell many things though, right? Like I wasn't selling anything, so I don't really have a dispositions person in house. When I was flipping houses and stuff, yeah, that was different, but it's a different animal, different buyer. Right now with the larger apartment buildings, I don't really have like a dispositions team. So, but I have a lot of influence in the commercial real estate space. So I'm looking to sell some of these buildings, and I'm trying to think, you know, should I just list it in-house? But then which I have been doing, but it's taking my team away from asset management and some operations type stuff. And it's like a ton of, and I'm thinking, why don't I just list it with a national broker who professionally will put a package together, an offering memorandum, has all these contacts from all over the country, and I can also still push it out to my following and all my students and say, hey, just contact this person and let them go and sell it, and let me go back to finding more deals and operating more deals and
because if you put somebody in your disposition side, that would be a salaried person. You might as well just, and then you'll have health insurance and everything else that goes along with building our team. But if you just let that, you know, a national person deal with that, now they will have to have that contact constantly, because they want to talk it through with you. The owner, they want to talk it through with you. They sit on a call, you know, a 3-way or a Zoom call. They're there, literally sitting there, but they contacted that seller, that buyer is wanting to talk to you directly, ask you direct questions.
But there's a lot of the process, like, you know, Scott Hannes, right? Scott Hannes handles all of our human resources, and it's like, I liken it to a job application. You put a job opportunity out there, you might get 100 candidates that inquire. If I'm running the hiring process, I have to go and comb through every single one of the resumes and then call the top 20 and then narrow that down to the top 3 and then sit down and do interviews with those 3 and then hire the one. Having a broker combs through 100 different BS offers.
And if he's bringing you something that you're like, why are you bringing me? Why am I spending my time today talking to this guy? He's not interested. He's sniffing for information about my company to possibly mimic it or take it over or something. So, but a good broker won't even do that. They'll weed out all those. And when you're on a call, you're on with somebody that's extremely serious.
I think the key is what we're talking about is finding A players, right? When you have A players on your team, it changes the entire game. It changes the whole landscape, the dynamic of what you can accomplish. How do you essentially pay your A players on your team? Are you doing like a profit share? Do they have equity in the business? I know we kind of talked a little bit about some of this stuff, right?
I pay a strong salary for my A player. Yeah, strong salary and base it on benefits. Yep, and base it on how good. I think I taught this in the match that I'm still drilling that down as to how to actually say it, because she knows that the better I do, the better she does.
Yeah.
The better. Our mother company is called Garrett Ventures Group, and then our LLCs are like funneled off that, whether it's lending, whether it's cash flow, whether it's whatever the businesses are. She handles. Once a month we sit down and go over Garrett Ventures Group. All those businesses funnel up to there, right? And so she knows our goal for the end of the year, and if we make that goal, then you make X. Mm-hmm. So, but she has a very strong salary to start off with. Yeah.
And I think a lot of people see that if it's an A player, one of the tough parts for me was always like, I mean, if you don't have a lot of revenue coming in, it's hard to pay somebody a multiple six-figure salary in order to attract that person into your organization. So, like, how have you found that people can attract A players without having to take on all that overhead up front?
I just think that if they're not an entrepreneur, they want security. They all do. Yeah. They don't like to.
It's hard.
It's hard, and they'll leave you. I have found that out. I had a very strong COO before Angela, and if it's not him, it was his wife. You know, his wife was like, "This is too scary." Yeah. We lasted 5 years. He had left UPS making six figures, well into six figures, strong. And if it gets a little hairy, and you might miss a month, you see, then the wife is screaming, you know, and I love both of them to death, you know, like, this isn't working. You know, all of a sudden it's not working. So then you got some pull from the family. So I feel like I've just kind of, that helped me understand how to deal with Angela, was that I'm going to pay you a stronger salary. But I understand that not everybody's got that starting out. I would think that just...
And by the way, I've had that exact same thing happen to me with you, like, it's hard, you know, it's really, really difficult because there's skinny months, and all of a sudden you're like, hey guys, we'll catch up payroll on the second half of the month or early next month, and that happens a lot, and great, amazing people because of it. So I guess the point I'm making is, like, I don't want anybody to feel bad if that has happened to you. It's a growing thing.
It happens to
all of us, right?
You know, whether it's those skinny months come, and you might, okay, everybody's working 7 days a week. You know, and it happens whether it's the market changing makes that happen, or just the business model makes that happen. It happens to all of us, and we lose them, and you wish, and you just, you know, wish it could have worked out because he was so strong. But
and we feel guilty about it, but you know,
totally guilty, and totally. I was not even taking salaries at all early years to make sure he and his wife and 3 kids are taken care of. You know, I want to take care of you. You know, you put so much on your shoulders with that, and so it's a ton of pressure. But it's growing pains. We've all been through it. My God, it's just growing pains.
Some of the people on my team I've paid salary. Almost, I don't know if there's anybody on my team who makes over $60,000 a year, actually, including myself, in salary. And so what I've done, and I'm not saying this is the best way to do it, but I've paid a base salary. I want everybody to have enough of a salary where they know that their basic needs are met. You know, like they know food's on the table, and there's a roof over their head, and clothes on their back, and they're not worried about how are they going to make their car payment or keep their lights on or anything like that. But I also don't want them comfortable by any means. You know, I want them having enough where they're not stressed, but not enough where they're just comfortable in their role. At least my executive team. And so everybody on my executive team gets paid a base salary, and they get paid like a profit share. And really, there's a handful of guys. There's 3 of them that actually have equity in our businesses, and then everybody else who's on the executive level gets paid some sort of like a profit share, or a bonus, or even like a royalty based on top line revenue. So I'm trying to figure out, like, when I'm hiring somebody, is how do I motivate them to drive the same KPIs that I care about. And so, like my director of marketing, I pay her a base salary, and then she gets a percentage of driving revenue. And so she gets a royalty on all the revenue that she drives and gets paid on top line revenue, because I want her focused on that. I don't want her worried about how much we're spending on the masterminds, or how much we're spending on, like all she needs to be doing is just driving traffic for our coaching business.
And how do you figure that out? Like, because you have so many different outlets, this is going out somewhere. But is she just handling all that? How do you keep up with that amount? Okay, Kelli met you through some marketing. Now Kelli is coming in and hey, I want you to come in on a deal with me.
It's just on the education, just on the coaching.
Okay, that's good. Okay.
So the coaching business is a good business, right? Like it's a high margin business. We've been in it for 2-3 years, so we already have like revenue that's coming in. The mastermind is included in there, both of my masterminds, Legacy Family, Legacy Boardroom, and then my 2-day event, Commercial Empire. Okay. So she gets paid on the gross revenue that comes in from those.
Okay, that makes more sense. Okay.
And then any deal flow, she does not get paid on deal flow or anything like that. But that's a way that she can be compensated for driving those things. And just to your point earlier, is like setting very clear expectations. Here's how you're being compensated. Here's the game plan. And the goal is to drive these things. You're getting paid on these things. We're making our money when we go and do the deals, and we take down more property and all that kind of stuff.
Now, do you do that monthly or do that quarterly? How do you pay them on that?
Quarterly.
Okay.
Quarterly. So we'll do quarterly financials, and then say, hey, here's what we grossed, whatever.
Right.
$700,000 that quarter, and $700,000, she makes a bonus of $14,000.
Okay.
And that way, she's getting paid as we kind of go along. And I see some people who pay bonuses on an annual basis, and people get their bonus at the end of the year, and then they jump ship because they don't want to wait another year. I do it on a quarterly basis. If they don't want to be there, get their bonus, roll out. Right?
No, I think it's great. I appreciate you being so vulnerable and talking about that, especially with different people in your business. So I love that. I felt like with my CEO, when I sat down and talked, I wouldn't have gotten her. I wouldn't have been able to pull her from what, granted she was kind of retired, but she was used to making this there.
Yep.
And so I don't know, maybe we could, get that main lead person, we might could do an X right there, and then for people below them, then you could take that model, because I really like that model.
So my COO, Matt Carlin that you know, Fatty Bomitri that you know, Nick Burton that you know, they're all equity owners in our education, and have some equity also in all of our holdings as well. But they all, I've worked with all of them for many years. Like the shortest amount is Nick, and I worked with him for 6 years. Matt Carlin I've worked with, I've known him since high school, but we've been working together for about 10 years. And then Fatty Bomitri I've known since high school, and I've been working with him for 7 or 9 years, something like that. So I knew what their work ethics were. And before any one of them got onto an equity or a profit share even, we did a joint venture, right? So how can you attract, six-figure talent? We just partnered up on a deal-by-deal basis and said, hey, from a profit share standpoint, you're going to get this much profit share, or we're going to split up the deal this way or that way. And that way they could test out working with me, I could test out working with them. And then I brought them in-house and paid them a base salary along with profit share on top of it. And it worked out. We could test each other out on some individual deals, and then work collaboratively across the entire company. But I think there's a lot of ways, and I'm learning as I continue to grow. Like I'm at a level now where I need a CFO. I need individuals like that. I've been staffing a lot of that stuff out and just utilizing my CPA to come in, and I pay my CPA a lot of money. And it's almost to the point where
you can put them in-house.
It's 6 figures, right? So it's like, why don't I just bring somebody in-house now and handle all that? But I kind of like the idea of utilizing a third party as well, just to kind of give it some checks and balances in the business, you know what I mean? So I don't know, I'm going through this, and I realize that if you want to attract a multiple 6-figure talent, you can't just pay them 50, 60 grand a year with bonus or profit share, because it doesn't whether it's them or their spouse, it doesn't give them enough confidence in it without just doing that. And Scott Hannes has been leaning on me hard for that. He's like, you got to pay him. I was like, but everybody else gets paid this much,
Yeah, it was kind of a funny situation. And when we're interviewing at that level, I've learned, again, I'm not smart. I'm only smart because of trial and error, is that you bring the spouse in. And when I'm interviewing or talking to them, I want to know their spouse. There's weeks when you might not see her for a long time. And there's weeks when you might see her all week. Yep. I don't know, but need you to understand that. And then last but not least is that I remember us sitting at the wherever we were eating, I think it was Gray's in Mount Pleasant, and I wrote it on a little piece of paper, the salary. And I love the fact that she sent it right back. She said, nope, not gonna work. And so I loved that even more about her, that, she thinks enough of herself.
Yes.
That, nope, send it back. And we kept sending it back till we got, just
This is Angela?
This is Angela, yep. And it was funny. It was like a funny situation. And so I kept stretching out. Sunshine was looking at me like, really? I'm like, yep, I'm going up. So it was just a fun thing to do. And I love, again, the fact that she thought enough of herself to be like, I can't work for that.
I think you need that in especially your COO, who can stand up to the boss. That way they're going to be able to stand up to the rest of the team, people who come in and want to buy the company. Like, you want them to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times people, they believe employees are an expense. And I think if you don't hire the right employee, you don't put the right person in the right seat, if you don't train them properly, if you don't measure their performance properly, they can be an expense. But if you are hiring the right people and you're putting the right person in the right seat to their strengths, and you're setting proper expectations, and you're measuring them appropriately, employees are an asset, right? Like, there's a return on investment when you hire that person and what they're going to be able to do for you. You might pay them $100,000, $150,000, $200,000 a year, but if they generate an extra $1 million of revenue and you had a 30% margin, you make an extra $300,000. Does it make sense to pay somebody $150,000? Yeah, hell yeah, it does.
Yeah, and to make sure it's not blowing out the back door. Like, you can bring the revenue in, but if you can have somebody else that can see it and not seeing that it's like we're losing it back here. It looks good at the front, but we're losing it back here. Or she, like yesterday was a prime example. She just called. She said, hey, 30 seconds. You got 30 seconds? 30 seconds. What you got? She said, just want to make sure your radar's up. About so-and-so, because I'm a people person. I love people.
Me too.
Kind of take them for what they say they are until they prove different. And she said, and her radar's a little different, and because she's married to an attorney, is the fact that she's like, I'm not feeling that person. Yeah. Just be careful. Yeah. Just crazy stuff like that I'm like, appreciate that phone call. Looking out for me, looking out for our business. Yeah. Looking out, it was a lending situation. And so maybe I wouldn't have seen it, but I told her that I had already kind of sniffed it out a little bit. Yeah. But it's little things like that. For sure. Total the legal stuff. I mean, I'm real, we have different personalities, and where I'm aggressive and I'm passionate, so I'm gonna high five or I'm gonna be in your face, one of the two. Mm-hmm. And if she's been behind that other person before where she's like Kelly, shut up, zip it. It's over, done, get out of there, get out of her face before you get sued of some sort. Yeah, exactly. And I love that about her because she's calm, collective, and I'm not. Yep.
I'm the same way. I got a short fuse. I'll jump fast. I want everybody to be successul, but if they cross me one way or another, I'm like, dude, get them out of here.
Yeah.
And they're cut off.
It's too much energy. Yeah.
So let's pivot a little bit. Let's go into the lending situation. I think it's always interesting. I've been borrowing money to do my deals for a long time. Now I'm on the lending side. And one of my early mentors said, hey, listen, you borrow money for your own deals, you lend money on other people's deals. And I was like, why the hell would I ever do that? Why would I want to pay? Why don't I just use my own money? He's like, because it doesn't matter how much money you have, you'll eventually run out if you're doing a lot of deals and doing a lot of volume. And so I've always kind of subscribed by that. And I've been in growth mode a lot. But I got a big liquidity event, as we've been talking about, coming up. And I'm going to be lending a lot of my money, personal money, not just kind of, because a lot of times I'll borrow and then I'll lend to an operator or we'll joint venture, but my team will be involved to kind of babysit the deal and joint venture on the project. And so You being in the lending game, tell me a little bit about what do lenders look for in operators, in assets, in returns? Those three things.
Operators are the huge part. You know, I tell a lot of people no because I need to know what the operators, and it's a lot of things have to do with what you're talking about and what bucket you're playing in. Or you're playing on the fix and flip. That operator is just as important. Because the number one thing is that you really don't want that back. If so, you would be doing it, right? If we have to take a single family back or an apartment complex back that we're lending on, number one, I want to like both deals. I want to like the deal. Yeah. Would I do it on when we were flipping? Would I do that deal? Yeah. And would I do this apartment deal? Yes. Would I like it back if it were in my portfolio? So number one, that's a big deal. Operators are huge. Operators, we are an asset-based lender, and I think you probably would be too. It's important the asset it fits these criteria.
Especially for us being in tangible assets, like this is just our business. So we're not used to, like I've got a lot of people coming to me and looking at, hey, invest in this startup company, invest in this, invest in that, invest in like venture capital, and it doesn't totally connect in my mind because I'm used to tangible assets and things that I can actually see and touch and feel. Yeah.
I think the operator, and you've had some operators, I'm sure, that just you thought were jam up, you know, and just weren't that, and you're selling off. We missed it on the front end somewhere, right? There's going to be those times. I tell my people all the time, like the more that we're out here, and the new business we're in is Rehab Wallet, and so when we're lending out, if we've got 100 deals on the street versus 2. The odds are something's going to happen.
Yep.
Something's going to happen. Be ready for it, whatever. Yep. But we just do our best on the front end with the operator. You know, spend some time off. You know, and I'm going to be honest with you, is that I wanted to learn a little bit about you before I invested in your deals.
For sure.
That was the main thing about joining your mastermind. Yep. About joining you, I wanted to just kind of be around you more to make sure. I just think
social media stuff aligns with how they're a real person.
Because it doesn't always.
It doesn't. And unfortunately, it's actually more often that it doesn't connect than it does, you know.
And I've had some guys call from the mastermind, say, "Hey, will you lend?" And I just don't have that comfort yet. But somebody, and another thing was that have they been around for a while?
Right.
Chris Kelly's a good example. I haven't been lending in Florida yet, but I'm lending in Florida now with Chris Kelly. Yep. And I'll lend with Chris Kelly. Chris Kelly not only knows what he's doing, he's got a team behind him, but second of all, he's been around since that crash.
Yeah.
His eyes are open for another one that's going to hit in it. This too shall lend, what we're going through right now.
Yeah.
So, operator's huge. What kind of experience do they have? And then what happens if somebody gets hit by a bus tomorrow?
Yeah.
That one solo guy or girl, what's going to happen? The bigger their team, the better it is.
Yeah.
You know,
it's almost I mean it's diversified. It's kind of like apartment buildings. I was just talking with my buddy Keith the other day. It's like it's easier to build a big business than a small business because if you got a 100-unit apartment building, you got one property manager. You might have a couple of maintenance persons and maybe one leasing agent on site. If you own a 300-unit apartment building, you typically have 3 property managers, probably 6 maintenance guys, and 2 or 3 leasing agents. If your manager over here in the 100-unit gets hit by a bus or quits or needs to be fired, you're scrambling. Somebody's got to step into that role. Over here, if you lose one of the 3 property managers, you're okay because the other 2 can pick up the slack for 30 days, 60 days until you hire somebody new. And it's the same thing when you're lending to individuals. If they're a solo show, it gets risky, you know? Like what happens? All of a sudden you want to be dealing with somebody's estate, and then the estate, I don't know, is their wife going to take it over? Their husband going to take it over? Is their kid going to take it over? Like, who are you dealing with now versus something happens to me, you know, Matt Carlin and Fatty Bomitri are taking everything over. And you could
it's the same thing we talked about the business, you know, like if I'm buying your business, I want to know if something happens to you, if you're out of the picture, is it going to stay steady? The last thing we do every once in a while, actually most times now, because when you're moving up, you're leveling up, you add another 0 or 2, I ask for a key man life insurance policy on that person. Whether I'm joint venturing, I've joint ventured on a deal in the Old Village recently with 4 partners, but one of those partners is a main guy, right? He's the He's not the brains behind it, but close to it. Yep. If something happens to him, I don't know about it. I'm bringing money. That's all I'm doing, right? And so I wanted a key man life insurance policy on it. Let the joint venture pay for it. They're cheap. Something happens to him, it pays my deal, pays my loan off. And so they're cheap. Yep. Why not? I got the joint.
So why don't you explain that just so everybody understands kind of what that looks like. So you get a life insurance policy on them. The deal pays for it. It's essentially the same amount as the loan that you're taking on, and you, as the lender, are the beneficiary of that loan, right?
Great. And same thing like when the guy bought the
and when, if anything ever happened, you would release the lien because you got paid back with the life insurance, and then they could deal with it any way that they want.
Exactly. Their estate could deal with that.
Yeah.
100%. They're extremely cheap. The person has to be willing to take a physical exam to show that they're healthy, because it's just like a life insurance policy. Yep. The premiums are based on how healthy that person is, and so, like at Caroline Cotton Candy, that buyer, I just am the beneficiary instead of his wife or his kids. My LLC is the beneficiary, and so
I love that seller financing with a life insurance policy on them in case something happens to them, and then you can take the whole thing over, or you at least get paid out, and then their estate can deal with it.
And also your address, and your address is on that policy, so if the premium is not paid, you'll get contacted from that. Kind of like as a lender, you want to be a lost payee or a mortgagee clause on the insurance declaration page, so that if any of my loans, they're not paying their insurance, I get notified.
Or if they're not paying their loan, you can just send a car to run them over, and then you are getting paid again.
There you go. That's what he said too. He's like, so how does it keep me from knowing that you're going to come? So I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. That's the last thing I really want, but
it's an option, so I want to hang it over your head.
Exactly, you know? Exactly. So pay your payment. I think it's just as again, we all have gotten burned. So all these are just like, if you know, like when we go.
It's not because I don't like you. It's just because I've gotten burned before.
It's like a loan closing documents that we all sign now at closing. They're like 50 pages, and you know why? It's because a lender's gotten burned on something in there, so they add a document to it, add another document to it. You know,
it's my lease agreements too. You know, it used to be a one-page lease agreement. Hey, if you got first month rent and deposit, you're in. You know, come on in. And now my leases are like 17 pages long with pictures of the units before and after and all sorts of stuff. They got to sign off on everything. And if you clog the drain, if you do this, you do that. You got friends over who are drunk and start a fight or slip down the stairs. Like
exactly, because that's happened. Friends have come over, gotten drunk. Exactly, exactly. Yeah. So it's exactly how the world. You just don't start out like this. This is, you know, many years of failing and getting burned or getting sued or getting whatever to be here. And, you know, again, I've talked about my dad before, but I'll say it again, is that he also said, you know, you're playing with the big boys, expect big boy things. So if you want to stay here in this small little bubble, probably things aren't going to happen. But once we get a little bigger and start playing with the big boys and girls, things are just going to happen. And don't be afraid when it happens. Just expect it. I expect lawsuits. I expect things because I'm playing in a field or the possibilities. But we have things in place, and we're probably still going to get burned. But it's just that's how it all happens.
It's and that's so true. You know, like you have different levels of. As you reach different levels in business, there's different levels of struggle or problem or obstacles that come up with it. But I think you make a good point when you talk about you've been through all the struggles, you've been through all the adversities, and all these things are in place because it's all happened to you, but it makes your business that much better. How many people get derailed when one or two of these things happen and then they leave the business, versus if you just stick through it, eventually you've been through everything, almost everything, right? And it's very difficult to have a borrower pull one over on you, or to have a contractor pull one over on you, but because you've been through everything and you have all the safety nets in place and the stop losses in place and the documents in place, where now your business is more profitable, you have less losses, you have less headaches because you've been through all that. And now it's easier to run a business today than it was early on, because you have all these different things in place. You know, I think if you can get through the struggle bus part of this entire thing, in any business that you're in any endeavor, if you can get past that, you just got to get through the kind of wading through crap kind of a thing. And once you're beyond that, it's all free flying and free floating, and it's a lot easier to build the business later on because you've already been through all that stuff, and now you're just rinse and repeat, printing money, doing good deals, because you know how to read the operators, you know how to type of assets you want to invest in, you know what the returns need to look like because of all the other things that come with it, and blah, 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 blah. And it's just, I think people need to have a long-term vision when they're starting out a business. And if they don't, or they're going to get sidetracked or derailed from these little obstacles, no, that makes you better and better and better, so that way you're more profitable and bigger and more successful later on, you know?
That's so true. Two things could happen with that. Either A, like you said, they get derailed and they just get out of the business. Or B, they don't take action and put things in place as they go through and just keep getting punched in the throat over and over and over again. So you're thinking like, God, this happened one time, shame on me if I let this happen again. We put something in place, whether it's a new page in your lease agreement or whatever the situation is, or you're wide-eyed now with an employee situation. If you don't put those things in place, shame on you. Because there's not a black cloud over there, over us, and you don't get punched in the throat over. It's just your fault and my fault if we don't put something in place to make that happen. Because you know, and you hate to see people leave after just a few throat punches because it's just going to keep happening, or you put some things in place. So, and it's not a like I said, it's so not a get rich quick. This is a long-term play, but it's something to so look forward to as being an entrepreneur. Whether you're in business or whether you're in apartments or whether you're in both or coaching or whatever, it's the same thing. We're wanting cash flow and freedom, and whatever the product is that can bring that for freedom for our families. That's the name of the game.
Love it. Tell me about Rehab Wallet. So we launched Rehab Wallet. You guys actually did a loan with us, and we was about $600,000. Just need like a little bit of bridge debt on a deal, paying off a package of properties. They made us we refinanced one building. They made us pay off the loan that was like across 3 buildings, and those other 2 of them, we got some bridge financing while we were closing another bank loan on it. So you guys came in, super easy to work with. Really appreciate that.
Yeah, appreciate business.
We just kind of turned it around pretty quick. I think less than 90 days.
Yeah, totally.
With you. So why did you start that business, and what kind of stuff are you guys looking to invest in?
We started the business again. Just coming out of the business, ready to start my next or see what was out there. And so I had been private lending, like literally from my own personal stuff, during business, during other like Carolina Cotton Candy or any other thing that I was doing. And so I was getting more phone calls than I personally was wanting to place in here because I still have other things going on, right? So I teamed up with, again, it would be like my relationship with my apartment syndicators that I go in and invest just like I do with you. And so I went to them and said, look, I have the experience in this world, in the mortgage world, because of my past business that I had done in 2000 to about 2010. So I have this. I feel like, just like anything else, we all have to be open to what's coming to us. And that was coming to me so easily. It was like, Kelli, you know, and I was like, guys, I'm out of money. I'm out of money.
Mostly single family though at this time.
Mostly single family. And still it's mostly single family. Got it. So that's kind of how, once again, I was looking at the opportunities that were just coming to me through my phone without a lot of just organic marketing. And I thought, this is something. And so that's when we started Rehab Wallet. We started in July of last year. Our first loan went out in July. You know, we're raising money on the front end. So the team, there's 4 of us. They raise the money on the front end, and then me and then my team, Rehab Wallet's team, of which pays for the processor, pays for the admin, pays for the business expenses that goes along with that. But they bring the money in on a 506c, and we, raise the money, pay out 6% APR. And the reason we pay out 6% is because it can come in and out. It's a short-term play. It's not a long-term play.
Which is a very different because a lot of people have the money committed for at least 2 years in most funds like that.
Exactly. And because what had happened was those apartment syndicators, and it's called passiveinvesting.com, they were having some phone calls was they're raising money for their apartments. They're like, dude, I'd love to put some money in your apartment fund, but my kid's getting married in 2 years. I need this money to pay for her wedding or school for my child. I can't have it tied up for 5 or 6 years.
Yep.
And so, we have this other fund now that you can place your money short term.
Yep.
It's a little bit less, it's definitely less risky. It's more, it's less interest, but yet you can touch it. And so, so we have that, and then the passive investing group allows their dividends that they pay out monthly to their apartment guys. You can actually rotate that back in and dump your dividends down in this short-term fund, and then it compounds monthly too. So if you keep your money in here and don't ever take a monthly dividend, then it compounds on a monthly basis.
Gotcha. So I put $100,000 in as a private lender. You're making 0.5% a month, right?
For like $4.15 a month.
Yeah. So you're making, and then so now I got $100,500 in the account, and then the next month, so it keeps on growing that way. I love that. And then
we just take that money from, and I'm over here sending it out to mostly fix and flip, and but we're hard money.
All debt, not equity investments?
No, right now, no equity investments.
Right, so just doing debt lending, first lien position.
Just first lien position. We have a PPM to follow with our investors to support it, that we stay in line with what we've told our investors. And they're our number one, reason why we're able to do this. And all the fix and flip, as long as it's 70% LTV.
So on your side, I've looked at debt funds before, and potentially starting one. I want to do more of an equity fund, which would be a little bit different. But I know that the debt funds that I've talked to, a couple of my buddies had in the past, a very difficult part is like balancing act of the money in and the money out.
That was one of your first questions when I told you I was doing this a year ago.
Yep. And so I know that they were struggling on that front, because as soon as the money comes in, you're paying on it typically. And if you're not paying on it, it just gets less interesting for the passive investor. Yep. And then when it's deployed and all that stuff. So is that a big balancing act?
Yeah, 100%. It's the seesaw. It is a constant.
Are you finding a harder time raising money or deploying money?
Raising.
It's harder to raise money right now, huh? Why? Because of 6% return, people think they can make better returns, or?
I don't know. I mean, I'm still like super impressed. They're impressed with what we can do, but I'm super impressed with somebody that can raise money. Yeah. Just not, they're doing a great job. But again, it's the timing thing. Like you could call for 600, and I'll be like, I'd love to invest with, but I just can't because I don't have it over here on this in the escrow account. Yeah. So, and then I had it like last month for the first time. They called and said, "Hey, I got somebody who wants to deploy $1 million, but wants to put it on the street tomorrow." I'm like, well, it's going to take me about, I have these queued up to close. It'll be like 8 days, so you're right. Somebody's going to deploy $1 million, then they don't want it sitting in our escrow. Yep. Our PPM says we have, I think, 60 days to deploy it. I don't remember exactly, but I've never had that problem, honestly, during this time, because I think it's just because of our spheres of influence over here. Yep. We do REIs. I'm around a bunch of fix and flippers. I coach fix and flippers. Yep. So that's coming pretty good to me. And then these other relationships that we have. But what happened is that as the fund, again, it's like starting a new business. It's hell that first year or two, right? It's hell. Same thing with the fund. It's hell because I'm having to do this thing. But what happened is then those will pay off and come back in after 6 months. Yep. And now I'll have that money. We haven't been in hardly 6 months.
And so you can predict what it's going to look like as the more money starts rolling in.
So we have a spreadsheet that shows when these are coming to be paid off, because I'm getting calls now finally for payoffs, because I've just now been in it 6 months, 6 or 7 months. And our deals typically are 6 to 9 months. So those will rotate back in, and keep us from having to borrow so much. I mean, not borrow, but bring in so much.
Right.
So the balance, just like anything else, if it were easy, everybody would do it.
Yeah.
The balancing act is tough right now, but I can see the light in the tunnel because we've been through our first 6 to 8 to 9 months.
Yep.
The short-term lending. If
fascinating.
I was long-term lending, it would be harder. But you see, I like the 6 to 9 months, so I can use that same money twice.
Yeah.
In a year.
Yep.
And
so you can cycle it more, take a couple of points each time, and then all of a sudden.
As the partners at the beginning had to fill in those gaps, absolutely. But I'm making 6% on my money.
Yeah.
So I'll put money in the business.
Yep.
Make 6% on my money.
Yep.
So will those guys. Everybody's,
You pay a fixed 6%, or do they also get like any sort of bonus on top of the performance of the fund or anything like that?
The partners?
Well, the investors get just a straight 6%, right?
Yeah.
And then you guys obviously make money because you make a spread on it, covers the overhead, and go from there. So is the goal to sell that business eventually?
We want to somehow parlay that with something with passive investing, kind of like BlackRock or Blackstone.
Yep.
Something in that model. We can't see it yet. It's so new.
Yep.
But day one, again, setting up all the training stuff when I'm training, so that it's not. The biggest question would be, would those investors leave if Dan, Brandon, and Danny leave?
Yeah.
You don't know that.
Yeah.
If we have the rotation of money in, we don't know that yet.
Right. But
the more
506C, once you show the experience and the track record of 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, then you're probably raising money that's not connected to those individuals.
Exactly.
And you can raise money like anybody does on
For an insurance company, hedge funds, or whatever.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things, one of my buddies had a fund. They had, 15, 20 million or something that they had raised and that were circulating through. And they had the opportunity from a local investment fund or I think it was just a local bank to give them a line of credit for an equal amount of money. So they had a track record of 4 or 5 years with 15 or 20 million bucks. So then they had a letter of intent for another 20 million at 6% or 7%. They were paying their investors a little bit differently, and so they had a little bit risk of not getting a 6% return, but then there was upside if the fund did pretty well, then there was like a profit share kind of a thing. So it was a little bit different of a structure, but they were able to go and get essentially match it with the local bank, and then have a pool of 40 million bucks. But it was a line of credit, so they could pull on it as needed, and it just kind of helped them with
it totally helps, and they want to see that. They want to see your track record, even though passive investing has been around. My business has been around a long time.
Yep.
They want to see this track record right here.
Yeah, it's a new business.
It's a new business, and so that'll be the key to it. And probably another year we'll be able to get that line of credit to show at least 12 months of being able to see this circulation of going through. But we're at the beginning. It's like anything else, training people, hiring people, bringing the right people in. It's like we was talking about with taking a new business and, okay, got a new business, Ange, here we go.
Yep.
We got to get it. We got to get the foundation right so that it's not dependent on us.
Yep.
And right now it totally is. Any business, I think, at the very beginning is when you're setting it up. If you're buying a business, you want to make sure that management team is in there. But when you're starting one up from scratch, you're starting everything.
What does that life cycle look like typically from a time frame? You think like 3 years is a good timeline?
I think maybe 5 years. I think it'll last a little bit longer. I just think that, and it all, my opinion is going
to make it sellable, I guess is my question. Do you think like 5 years?
In this particular business or any business?
In most businesses.
In most business, I'm going to say 3 to 5 years.
I think so too.
In the lending world, I feel like you need more of a track record because you're dealing with money. For whatever reason, just mind is crazy when you talk about this is money. But it's the same to me.
Yep.
It's okay. We're taking these dollar bills, these soldiers, and you're working for me over here, as well as I'm selling you cotton candy. It's the same thing. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's the same widget, exactly.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, when it's talking about the dollar bill, people's psychic is kind of crazy about that.
So 5 year horizon, potentially selling the business. Where do you see the market going? And we'll wrap up after this. I know you're out of drink. I'm almost out of coffee. So Where do you see the market going over the next, I don't know, let's call it 12 to 36 months? Strong, based on your track record, you've been through multiple market cycles. You know that all this stuff is cyclical. We all know that, and you alluded to it a couple times, especially with you building a new business right now during kind of a pretty hot market.
Yep.
What are you seeing on the horizon, and what are you doing to mitigate any risks for things that might change?
Extremely conservative right now with the BPOs. Staying conservative. If you're experienced, and you got to remember, whether we have 35 million to deploy, that sounds like a lot of money, but it's really not.
Right.
And so I know a lot of those investors I would probably say 85% of the people I know a lot about them. I know a lot about their team. I know a lot about what's going on in their lives. So I'm able to deploy that knowing the operators is important. But the market, I'm being extremely observant of what's going on with the BPOs right now, because I do see the ARVs changing. It just is going to change. I don't know when. I don't know between 12 or 36 months. I don't know when that's going to happen.
Yeah.
But I just see too much crazy, and when you see too much crazy, your mind can't even imagine it, that unless you've been through it, that this will change.
I know, right?
When you see everybody's
talking on social media how great deals are looking and how their property, they sold it for 20% more than what they thought they could sell it for. You're like, something's going on here.
When social media or the news changes and gets everybody concerned or scared, they'll retreat. It happened then, it happened now. It will happen. But what I think about this business it's twofold. One is that I think that when we're lending to people, it might change. I might move into more of the not commercial, but maybe of the multifamily side. And the only reason I'm not is because I don't have to right now. The fix and flip is perfectly fine. Is that banks will, when that fear goes in, the banks are going to go like this. They did last time. They're going to stop lending. They're going to stop lending.
I mean, they did it last year when COVID hit initially, and it tightened up a lot very quickly. Hard money lenders will be the first ones that people are going to call. I need money. I go, gosh, it'll be A players that need the money instead of the people that are calling me now. Maybe they don't have great credit, blah, 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 right? And so, or you wouldn't be using hard money, or if you didn't have your own money. So A players will be calling us. A players from the commercial world might be able to, I might pivot a little bit and be like, okay, some of the A players in the commercial world need $2 million, so instead of doing 20 $100,000 fix and flips, I might do $2 million. So maybe a larger process because they're A players. I like the asset. The cash flow is great. So I might pivot a little bit with that. But right now, I'm just eyes wide open to the market, staying very involved in, that's why we're only in South Carolina, North Carolina, and Georgia, and very little in Georgia, very little in North Carolina. We can put our fund in South Carolina all day and Sunday. And knowing a lot about each market. I'm from Easley. I know about the upstate. Columbia, I have a big pulse on Columbia right now, just because I have a main lead guy there. And then in Charleston, these tri-counties, I'm all over it. And so that's kind of where, but my eyes are wide open right now to these. These BPOs are very important. These appraisals are very important right now. I don't want to stretch them, and I'll let all of them know. I don't want it stretched. If we change our LTVs, we change our LTVs. But right now, it's 70% for most everybody coming in. If you're experienced and you're on our VIP side, I can go up to 75%. So that means the market at 70% needs to take a 30% decrease before I'm in the hole. Risk at all, right?
Yeah. Can we take the property back? And we have them sign in our document, our legal docs, that is a confession of judgment. So if I have to take it back, I'm going to be bypassing a lot of that, and I'll be able to foreclose quickly, take the property back, resell it, or JV with somebody else to flip it and move on to get my money back. So I think 30%, and we're 6 months. So
that's a good spread.
Yeah.
And here's the thing: it's not like what we saw in 2008, 2009, where it was fake money, it was fake appraisals, it was fake. It was like no doc loans, and like it was just everybody's ripping their fees off the table. it's different now. Like there's real demand in real estate. There's real, there's not a lot of supply. There's a lot of demand, and that's why prices are increasing so much. And there's a lot of money on the sidelines. So I think as soon as prices dip even a little bit, 5%, 10%, I think there's gonna be a lot of money coming off the sidelines that gets redeployed that bumps those values right back up or keeps them at least steady right there. And
I think though, but especially on y'all's side about the cash flow side and me being an investor in deals with that is that it's cash flow. Who cares if it goes down 10%?
Yep.
Who cares? We're in this thing for cash flow.
Yep.
We're in it typically for 10 years, 6 to 10 years. If it goes down, it will come back up.
Yep.
But all we're concerned with was this cash flow.
Yeah, I mean, worst case scenario, if it covers the operating expenses, it covers the debt service, you can still make payments to the investors. Worst case scenario, their money's safe and you just have to ride it out a little bit longer. Like that's a pretty good bad scenario,
Absolutely.
right? So I think if you're buying for cash flow, that's a really good place to be in right now. And are you guys doing more luxury loans, or are these properties that you're lending on that could turn into rentals if they needed to be?
100%. I
Yep.
would never.
I think that's smart.
Never go into a luxury.
Yep.
Definitely not right now.
What about like we're in Charleston, right? Like what about the vacation rentals over on Isle of Palms, Sullivan's, Folly, or anything like that?
It's your traditional. It's where the retail buyers are all at. Is where I want. I want that 250 and below ARV.
Because you can cash flow those.
Because you're going to cash flows. I would be able to take those. Our other division will be able to take those back if I had to and rent them out, and you can cash flow if I had to. If not, but the majority of buyers, the retail buyers for those are there. If I'm going to loan over probably $400,000 to somebody, he or she is extremely experienced.
Yep.
And if they're, and it's one example that I've done is that I took my entire, I said, okay, I like it, and I'm looking at a lot of these deals. I like it, but I don't love it.
Yep.
If you want this, then maybe it's not at my normal interest, it's higher, and I'm collecting I want to go ahead and get my 6 months upfront payment from you. If you still want this deal, you're welcome to it.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like when you're busy,
Yep.
you might say it's this price. If you're not this busy, it's this price.
Yeah.
So we can do that.
Love it.
You know.
Awesome. I'll tell you what, I love sitting down, having conversations with you. I love that you're part of the group, part of the mastermind. I get a ton of insight every time that we're hanging out and talking. So I appreciate you being here.
Same here. Thank you. Thank you for the invite.
We gotta do this again on a regular basis because this is just good stuff.
Yeah, good.
So,
good. Appreciate it. Thank
Appreciate it, Kelly.
you. Absolutely. Thank you.
So awesome conversation we just had with Kelly. I thank her 1,000 times over. She is an absolute rock star. She's actually part of my mastermind group and brings just as much value as she gets out of it too. And it's people like her who are rock stars that make masterminds as valuable as they are. So if you're not connected with Kelly, make sure you're following her on social media. If you're ever in the Charleston area, jump into one of her either coaching programs or the local Real Estate Investors Association that she runs. And if you're looking to actively flip real estate and you're looking for lenders in real estate, hit her up. Rehab Wallet did an amazing job for me on one of the projects, and I just, as we get off camera here, I'm going to talk to her about a couple other deals that I have in the pipeline because she's such a good person to work with, not only from a standpoint of has access to capital, but also understands business, understands insights on real estate and all these other things, and is kind of a collaborative force with us whenever we do deals. So make sure you connect with Kelly. If this was a helpful video for you to watch, make sure you share it, please. Connect with us on all platforms, not just YouTube, but make sure you're connected with me on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and LinkedIn, and subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the notifications bell so that way you see new coffee conversations going on with all the awesome entrepreneurs that we're meeting with on a weekly basis. And share this with friends, with other people, other entrepreneurs, business owners, achievement-oriented individuals that are looking for insights on how to either start their own business or take their business to the next level. They're going to get just as much value out of it as you did. And other than that, I appreciate you, and I'll see you next week.